Hey everybody, Jeremy here. It's Wednesday, I think, and I had a few moments, so I thought I'd do a live stream drawing of a dog. I don't have any reference art in front of me. This was kind of a spur of the moment thing. Not this dog. Kind of a spur of the moment thing. I just figured, I got to do my drawing today. Sometimes I do them offline. Sometimes I do them while doing a live stream. I'm like, well, I'm not doing anything else. Let's do a live stream. So I'm just gonna jump right in and start drawing, I guess. Let's see. I got my piece of paper all set up. I'm going to draw a dog. The dog I'm going to draw is let's see, Doberman Pinscher, a Doberman. I'm going to draw a Doberman dog. Um, I've got coffee and water today because it is during the daytime. I'm just going to jump in and start drawing. So I wanted to kind of do the live stream because a lot of times I do these pictures, and let me see if there's anybody in chat. I'd be really surprised if anybody's in chat. Oh, somebody is in chat. Hey, how's it going? Z the Chicken Furry. I love that name. That's awesome. Um, so anyway, a lot of times I do these drawings and I just put up like a short or something. I don't really explain the process. So I thought I'd do a live stream today just to kind of talk while I'm doing it and see how it goes. But if you guys want to chat with me, I am watching the chat room, and I'm happy to talk with you guys while I'm doing it. But anyway, so I'm gonna do this Doberman pinch. I'm just gonna say Doberman because I always screw up the last name of the dog. But so the process is, I kind of explained it before, is I kind of block out a. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that, man. Great comment. Um, so I'm going to kind of try to block out the general shape of the head, but as I mentioned before, I'm very flexible on these lines. I just draw them to kind of like give myself a kind of a guide of where everything is, kind of try to get the proportions. Sometimes it works out well, sometimes it doesn't. When it doesn't work out well, I just kind of move the lines, kind of sly, because especially when dealing with the dog, a lot of the fur is kind of dark anyway, so like it really doesn't matter if I come in and cover up these lines later. I'm just kind of eyeballing it. I've talked in the past about how there's better ways of doing this. One of these days I'll probably get around to doing a video on that. So I already noticed that this nose is too long, so I'm gonna kind of carve it off a little bit. It's because I'm talking and I'm not paying attention to what I'm doing. So basically, I'm just going to kind of nix this line here and instead kind of use that as like the central part of his nose instead, which I think will work. Kind of, put in some scribbles. A lot of other people are more precise with their lines and stuff, but I'm not really worried about it when I'm sketching out. If I was worried about it, I wouldn't be using charcoal. I'd be using like a mechanical pencil or something like that, which would create like a really fine line. Notice how I'm kind of holding the pencil like a paintbrush. That's so that I can one reach across the page, but also if I was really concerned about it, I'd be doing like something like this. Sometimes when I'm working on something, I might do that. Oh, cool, cool. Yeah. So, it'll be a moment before I get to the blending side of it, but I do kind of like that process as well. I don't know why, but I've got the habit of drawing a line and then actually having the blending stump in my hand. So like I'll draw something and then directly blend it as soon as I put the marks down. So I guess it is kind of interesting. I'm trying to get in a better habit of explaining what I'm doing as well. I don't usually talk about what I'm doing while I'm drawing pictures. I just enjoy drawing pictures, so that's usually what I'm doing while I'm drawing is I'm just drawing. But if I'm going to be doing live streams on YouTube, people are naturally curious, so I'm trying to get better at explaining that part of it. But I don't know if there's a lot of explanation needed here. I'm just kind of looking at a picture that's on one screen and trying to copy it to the paper. Um, yeah. So some of these things do need to be moved. I think this is actually working out pretty well. Like I just accidentally kind of like eyeballed it pretty well. Speaking of eyeballs, so you've got the eye here. I always kind of try to figure out whether I'm doing a portrait of a pet or whether I'm doing a portrait of a person. I kind of try to start with a container and then kind of like work off of that as far as figuring out where everything goes. So like I have this container here of the nose that I started with, and I knew that there's about this much distance to where his eye socket would be. And then I see that his eyeball is going to take up most of that eye socket. And then I feel like this one here is probably too far in, so I can bring that down, bring that in. And then as far as the other eye, I'm kind of guesstimating the distance between this eye and this eye. I think I'm mostly correct here. But then when it comes to like trying to figure out the edge of the mouth, it's a lot easier because I already have this eyeball over here and I'm pretty happy with it. So I know that the mouth is going to end up right here. So that's kind of the process there. I create a container and I use that container to kind of build off of. He's got kind of like this little curl to the end of his mouth. And then as far as the neck goes, yeah, cool. Um, there are other people who use different processes that I may go into at some point. But when I'm just doing a quick sketch, it's not like I'm really concerned about how this turns out. Sometimes I am, like if I'm doing a pet portrait for a client, this one isn't. This is just practice. But if I'm doing a portrait for a client who commissioned it, especially if they paid for it, I am super concerned about getting it exactly right. So I might use some sort of method to make sure all my proportions are correct. But if I'm just drawing for fun like I am today, it's a Wednesday, I didn't have much to do. Um, I'm like, well, yeah, let's just practice drawing a pet. It's fine to eyeball it. And when you're I really want to be in the practice of eyeballing it anyway, because in real life, you don't have like a grid in front of you. You don't have a ruler. I know that some artists can measure by a pencil and using perspective and so on. I haven't mastered that yet, so it really doesn't matter if I'm eyeballing it or using like a pencil as a reference. Um, the end result's going to look about the same, and it's going to look basically like I eyeballed it anyway. But the tips here, this is probably more tips for like drawing, things in real life as well. I'm working off of a photo, but I could just as easily be looking at a dog if the dog would be happy enough to sit for me. Um, it's about the same. You kind of build a container and then you work off of uh, that sort of reference. So like, I know that this neck comes down from about here on the eye. So it's a little bit offset from the eye. And then, I just come down and put that line in. Now I have a neck. So I know that his ear, and I may run out of space. I may have drawn this too big, but I think I'm okay. Like he's got these pretty big pointy ears. I know that some of these Dobermans have I guess they're clipped ears that cause them to be pointy. I don't think they're naturally pointy. Um, in this picture they are, but because his ears stick up, I may not have enough space here. So, but I think it's fine. Just eyeballing it. I want to say this ear, yeah, just barely. This ear is going to end up around here. I know that it kind of comes off of this line. So this line should really just come straight up. I know that I started that as kind of like what this line would be, but I decided to move it. The ear, this his right ear, my left, is kind of a continuation of that line. And I'll worry about the details of it later, but it's basically this sort of like narrow triangle. Hey, so like I did kind of put this together quickly and I didn't do any like tests of audio or anything like that. If you're having trouble hearing me or anything, let me know. I'm gonna assume that you guys can, because like in the past it's kind of just worked out. You can see I put a lot of a lot of thought into this live stream today. So he's kind of got this like his skull kind of has this upper ridge to his eye. It kind of comes around. I like these features because they capture the lighting. And a lot of what makes a successful sketch is so what I'm using to draw with right now, I probably should explain that, is I'm just using a charcoal pencil. I've been working a lot with doing pet portraits in charcoal. I like charcoal a little bit more than graphite pencils. I just find they're easier to blend. Um, and I just like dry medium anyway. I also do some pastel work, and charcoals and pastels are kind of like, they go kind of hand in hand. One's just black and white, and the other's color. Um, so I've kind of gotten in the habit of using either pastel or charcoal to do my sketches over, like graphite and so on. So this is just a medium charcoal pencil. And the reason why I'm using a medium is that the soft pencils come out super dark. And when I'm kind of just sketching to figure out where things are, I want it to be kind of light. I'll come back later on with a softer charcoal, which will probably make things a lot more darker. So his eyeball's kind of here. And doggos have like really big dark areas to their eyes, a little bit different than human beings. The the general shape of the eye is going to be taller than a human being's, but it kind of works the same. I mean, eyeballs are round whether they're dog eyes or human eyes, and then they kind of come to a tapered corner, and then there's some more underneath. Just kind of sketch that in. So the other ear is about the same height as this one. There's a little bit different shape to it. It's kind of got this little hump here. It comes across. And then this part comes down. And then this ridge of his head comes back over. So it's kind of washed out because like I have a window here and you don't really see this line, but there is a top of an ear here. I'm always fighting that battle of like what shows up on the camera and what doesn't. So the side of his ear kind of comes down and around. Actually, I think I kind of nailed it on guessing how much of the space of this page this dog's head would take up. So this comes around. So I'm going to move back down to here because I'm not so sure about where this actually links up. I know that here on the corner of his mouth, there's another line that kind of comes out from there. And then that kind of moves into this kind of roundish area that comes around. And then it kind of comes up and it connects to this bit here. So this is kind of how you can eyeball proportions. Now, again, use it at your own risk because eyeballing things is sort of like an acquired skill. It's just that you're getting better at observation and stuff. For new people who are just getting started with drawing, this is probably not the way to go about it. This is where people run into some trouble where things just don't look right. But I don't know. I've just kind of always been decent. Like I screw up sometimes. Like you can go back and watch some of my other live streams. There are times when I get it wrong, and I would argue probably like people with a lot more experience at this than me get it wrong as well. So I'm not going to beat myself up over it, but I do believe that with practice you get better at it. Um, One of the things I do, even when I'm not drawing, is I kind of try to like measure up the world around me in terms of shapes. So I'll be at like, I don't know, the supermarket or something, getting peanut butter and jelly or whatever, and I'm just watching the people around me, and I'm like, oh well, I would draw an oval for that. It's kind of weird, but that's what I do. Like looking out my window now, I see some cars out there and stuff, and I start seeing the shape of cars, and I start seeing their position in space. So where most people might just non-artists, probably a lot of artists do this as well, but non-artists might look at a space and be like, yeah, all I see is cars. I'm looking at it as like, well, I see the space between cars, and I see the space between the car and the driveway, and so on. I think just getting in the habit of seeing the world like that makes you a better artist. So I noticed that this here is probably a little bit not as long. So make that adjustment. The end result is your picture ends up kind of looking scribbled, but that's okay because when you get into like actually adding the fur and things like that, a lot of these lines get covered up anyway. It's why you use the lighter pencil. Even if you were doing this in pencil, like graphite pencils, it's the same principle. Like usually when you buy a set of drawing pencils, they come in different hardnesses, and the harder the pencil, the lighter it's going to make a mark. The softer the pencil, the darker the mark's going to be. Now, if I wanted to bear down hard, I can still get a very dark mark out of this pencil, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just making really light marks. So on this head, I know that the black of his fur becomes like kind of a orangish brown, and it happens right around here or so. Of course, this is going to be like monochrome, so I'm not going to be drawing the orange and stuff, but there's still that shift in value that I have to account for. And then it kind of cuts off right here, and then most of this up through here is going to be like dark. But it's not perfectly dark because if you know anything about these dogs, the black fur on them like really reflects the light very well. So there's like pockets of light through here, so it's more like kind of a gray. It's got this like little tiny brown bit there that I want to make sure I capture the detail of. So this is a really cute dog. He's got these like little orange patches right above the eyes. I think that's cool. So hopefully I won't forget and kind of color that in black. I ran the risk of that. All right, so now that I feel okay with the face, I mean, it looks like a dog, right? Yeah, drawing is an infection. That's a good way to put it. I like it. That's a great way to put it. I mean, I've been drawing all my life, but I really only started practicing a lot more, like on a daily basis, just this year. Just since January 1st, which it feels like a while, but it really isn't that far back. And I gotta say, just the more I've been doing it, it just changes the way you see the world. I didn't normally go around, measuring things up like I do now. Um, it changes the way you observe the world around you, and there's no downside to it. It's all good stuff, but it definitely changes things. Um, that's one of the reasons I do it. I like those changes. I like that I'm seeing the world a little bit differently now. Helps with other areas of my life. Like I spend more time paying attention to things. Like there's probably a lot that escaped my notice before I started drawing more. Now I actually appreciate those things. Like, I don't know, a bird might land outside, and I appreciate the colors of the bird more because I'm trying to learn colors. Oh, thank you. It helps that it looks like a dog. If it didn't look like a dog, I'd be in some trouble. Um, I know I'm going to make mistakes as I'm working, but I try to avoid them. There's ways of fixing mistakes, but uh, the the best way to fix a mistake is to avoid making it in the first place. So I always have trouble with ears, but this one's really interesting. It's such a big face on this page. Like sometimes I draw smaller ones and then the details are a little harder to put in. But because this is so big, I can put in a lot of detail. So I'm just kind of drawing like little fur because there's fur there. I'm not too worried about the shape of it or the color of it or any of that. I just know that it's there, so I kind of want to. At this point in the sketch, I'm basically creating little reminders of myself, reminders for myself to come back and actually deal with. Like, I'm not too concerned about the perfection of it or details or anything like that. I just know that here, this is all going to be shaded in. Here, there's going to be a fur line. I see that in his cheek area, there's another spot of orange. So I kind of want to outline that just so that I remember not to cover that up with black. Coming down off of this line is where his neck ends, and it kind of curls around to about where this line is. So sketch that in. This is really dark through here. Some more fur through here. But it doesn't really just end there. I mean, obviously that'd be a weird neck. It actually comes down and there's another like roll, I'm gonna call it, kind of comes off. And that kind of lines up with the bottom of his mouth. So you see what I'm doing. I'm using these references to define this reference. So like his neck is being defined by his mouth line. I find it works. Again, you can probably do better if you just kind of like, I don't know, traced it or set up a grid system or something like that. But I kind of feel like some of those methods, while they're very super effective, also kind of shortchange you as an artist because it kind of, if you get in the habit of doing that all the time and you don't branch out and try to freehand things like this, you're kind of like setting yourself up to be like a certain type of artist, person who can copy photos. You're not going to have a grid in the real world when you're walking around like you're at the bar or something like that and you want to draw somebody, or many of you guys are still in school. You're trying to draw your classmate, you can't just put a grid over them. Some people do that though. They'll take a photo and they'll add a grid to the photo and work off of the photo on their phone, which is fine if that's what you want to do, but that's not the kind of artist I want to be. I want to be, and I don't say that because I feel like the other artists are inferior or anything like that. It's just the type of artist I want to be is I don't know, old school, I guess, where you would draw things live that are in front of you. So doing that, you really do have to get in the habit of kind of measuring things in this way that I'm doing here. But I'm not going to deny a lot of it is just like, instinctive from having done it quite a few times and practicing. I feel like that's an acquired skill. Like some of it's skill, some of it's habit. So I don't really know if anybody really knows what percentage of what, but I do know that the more you practice, you'll develop the habit, if not the inherent skills that you probably already have if you're interested in art. And then, some people are going to be better at the skill side of it than others. Like there are definitely some people out there who are way better than me when it comes to skill. But what I lack in skill, I make up in perseverance. Like I will draw and draw and draw and draw until I get better at it, just because that's the type of personality I have. Like if I want to be better at something, I'll just keep practicing. It's like anything else, you play an instrument or something, or you're involved in sports. You get better at it as you practice. Um, I don't know, somebody who runs like it's in track or something like that, like I don't know what sort of skill is involved in running, but I can't imagine it's like there's a lot to it. You just basically start moving in a particular direction. You try to do it really fast, but you get faster the more you do it. You know, that's so at this point I'm kind of shading in things because I kind of know I want to know what areas are black and what areas are. There's basically two major colors that make up this face. One is this really dark black coat, and then the other is this kind of like lighter toned orange coat. So I drew this line earlier, so I kind of know where one ends and the other begins, but I might forget that everything to the right of it is supposed to be black if I don't kind of like put all this in. Notice I am not concerned about detail here. I'm just trying to make general marks that kind of follow the coat. Some of this is going to be lighter than others. Um, but I want to know what areas are black and what areas are not at this point. That's what I'm shooting for. And then as I'm doing this, as I'm putting in some shade or whatever, I kind of want to add a little more detail than my simple sketch. So like I noticed that there's a mole here that that's kind of on the corner of here. So I kind of want to put that little curve in. And I'm still not that super concerned about lines and stuff like that because I haven't even started blending. I will blend some of this out. So if I want to move a line or something like that during that part of the process, I can. Like, I mean, and then, you know, I always have the eraser if I'm that concerned, but I'm actually happy with how this turned out. It's always nice when it turns out decent pretty early. All right, have a good one. So when I'm done with this, I'll create a short, like a time lapse of it and put it up. So be sure to check that out later. I appreciate you hanging out with me, man, or woman, whichever you are. Uh, Maybe you're a chicken. I don't know, but I appreciate you hanging out with me. Thank you so much. I shouldn't assume the people who are chatting. For all I know, for all I know, Z the chicken furry is actually a chicken. Hey, thanks, Bavetta. Ryan Bavetta in the house. Yeah, I've been trying to get better at drawing pets lately. I was doing human portraits for a while, and I still do those, but I wanted to, I don't know, I wanted to draw pictures that people want, right? So people love their pets. Hey, Just Dave, how's it going? Black and rust. Okay, black, not orange. Black and rust. Well, you guys have been here before, so you guys already know the processes, so I don't have to go too far into detail, so you guys probably won't have a lot of questions. But, you know, early in the process, I just kind of feel my way around the picture and decide where things are. Um, some of the charcoals that I work on, that's a lot of fun. Like some of the my favorite charcoals are actually where I just put down a big old mess and then like erase things to kind of get the idea of where everything is. I'm not doing that this time, but that's always fun. I've done at least one dog picture like that, where it's just a big old mess of charcoal. I have to be careful here because like everything's like the same value. I might lose these guidelines. So how you guys doing on this midweek day, hump day? Half the week is over. Trying to decide if this week has been successful or not for me. Like sometimes I get so busy that I kind of lose track of what I accomplished during the week. I used to keep notes on that, and I stopped doing that recently just because I got lazy. But I used to I used to kind of like keep a little journal, not like a journal where you're telling a story or like you know like a full on detailed accounting of what you did, but just like little bullet points of what I accomplished during that day, just so that I feel like I accomplished something. I need to get back in the habit of doing that. Um, at the start of this year, I was doing a habit tracker as well, where I was like, did I do my drawing today? Did I go for a walk today? Did I feed the rabbit today? Because sometimes I forget to feed the rabbit because the rabbit's outdoors. I don't think about it as much as I think about my dogs. The dogs will let me know if I haven't fed them, but the rabbit's just out there, and I have to be in the habit of going out there every day and checking on them. And then sometimes it's my responsibility, and then sometimes it isn't. So if every day I had to feed the rabbit, it would be a lot more easier for me. I kind of off on a tangent. Oh yeah, yeah. So like basically, I don't keep that kind of bullet journal as I used to have. Has he had a name yet? This dog? I'm gonna call him Rusty, just because I love that black and rust. It's just a Doberman pinch. I always Pinscher, double Doberman Pinscher. I think that's how you pronounce it. Anyway, a Doberman that I found on the internet. So I don't know what this dog's name is. I wanted to practice drawing a Doberman. Unfortunately, people haven't given me a picture of their Doberman, so I don't have one to work off of unless I just kind of steal a picture off the internet. This is going to be a little bit darker. So I like that I drew this big. Lots of room for details. So this is all black through here, so I'm gonna more quickly put in some guides here. And then I think I'm going to start blending some of this. It looks like a male to me too, but I mean, just from the face, is there any difference? Like, you know a lot more about dogs than I do. I know about horses a little bit. But I don't know if I could tell a female horse from a male horse just by looking at the face. I'm gonna assume this is a male dog. You know what? I'm just gonna call it a male dog because somebody this is somebody's actual dog, but for the purposes of this stream, it's essentially my dog. My dog can be whatever I want it to be. So I'm going to call it a male dog. Unless Just Dave corrects me and says, nope, it's not a male dog, and this is how you can tell. But short of that, I'm going to consider it a male dog. It's a beautiful dog. I don't want to just have these white orbs as eyes, so let me can. So at this point, I'm kind of like just kind of sketching in areas that I know are going to be darker than others. These are like the shadow areas. The midtone through here is kind of like this light gray. In fact, if I was using tone paper, which I really want to try, I just have to buy some and I'm cheap. Um, if I was using tone paper, all of these areas that I'm leaving blank would actually be something I would come back with white charcoal, which is really just pastel anyway, but kind of like a hard pastel, I think. But these are areas that I would actually color in white. I need to be careful through here because I can already see that I moved something. Yeah, so this is going to be make a darker line here just so I remember where the black. So I know this area is supposed to be like the rust area, and this area is supposed to be black. So I lost my guideline there that I sketched earlier, so I had to kind of darken it in just so that I remember where one begins and the other ends. Like I put in this guideline just because there's shadow in the orange area or the rust area. If I don't make this line darker, I run the risk of forgetting that. All right, so I think this is probably a good point to kind of switch to a blending stump just so that I can make some progress there. I'm going to use a bigger blending stump just to kind of get larger areas done, but a lot of times with pets, because there's so much fur, I prefer to use the smaller blending stump just so that you don't end up with like such fat areas of blended out. And I think that that kind of like shortens the workload when it comes to putting in fur later. Like this is all black through here. None of this needs to be perfect because you're just creating some shadow that you're probably going to come back and darken up later. Like this area is not going to be gray, it's going to be black. Put a little more. So if you got nothing to blend, it's not going to work. So the guy who was in here earlier, or the chicken that was in here earlier, um, Chicken Fury had questions about blending, so I'm going to kind of explain what I'm doing. So again, these are just light areas of charcoal that I put down. And I think it works really great for like a pet portrait where you just come in and you kind of blend those out into this kind of grayish tone. What I would consider, mid-tone to shadows. It's kind of like, depending on how you do it, you might like really hardly blend it in there and it comes out a little bit darker, or if you lightly do it, it comes out a little bit lighter. This is obviously not the finish coat, but what you're trying to do is kind of create like a base tonal value that you can add and work with. Fortunately for Dobermans, they're very short haired, so you don't have to go crazy with like, individual like tufts of fur coming off. Sometimes, like if you're doing, I don't know, like a golden retriever, you have to pay attention to how you're blending this stuff because you can kind of create tufts of hair coming off and stuff depending on how you blend it. Uh, you have the opportunity to do very small tufts or like light tufts of fur during this blending process that we can largely ignore here because he is a short-haired dog. But notice how like I kind of lost that line there. Like this area would be dark, but it's not going to be the same value as this. So I'm kind of putting in a little bit darker line so that I remember where one patch of fur starts and the other ends. So this is all kind of shaded through here. So I'm going to throw down some more charcoal just so that I have something to blend. So the real benefit of blending is that you end up with this smooth area, or this like smooth coat that you can add some texture to later and create sort of like a sense of realism in the fur. So again, like over here, I kind of lost this line here, so I know that this should start becoming black, so I'm going to put that line back in. So I'm actually working with like basically the two tools both in hand because I'm using both as I go along. Um, it's a lot like how I eat food. Like whenever I have like fried chicken or something. So you have fried chicken, and then you have the sides. Well, you need a fork or a spoon for the sides, but then you're holding the fried chicken in your left hand while you've got the spoon in your right hand if you're right-handed. Um, I'm doing both at the same time. So I draw how I eat, is what I'm saying. Yes, I know I sound ridiculous. That's fine. I don't care. This is all dark through here, so I don't have to go nuts with it yet, but I feel free to like add more because I know that this is, so he does kind of have these like little tufts coming off here. So I do kind of want to put that in a little bit just because I think it's cool and I don't want to forget to do it later. So it's just add blend, and then, you know, the further you get along, you just stop blending so that you're stuck with these not stuck with. That's actually what you're trying to do. You're left with, there we go. That's the word. That's the term. You're left with these areas of perceived detail. So you throw down charcoal, blend it out, you lose your detail, you come back and put it in as you go along. You know, this is weird. Like the last picture I did, I started at the bottom too. Usually I start with like the eyes or whatever, but I don't know. Maybe this is a new habit I'm forming where I start at the bottom. Anyway, my point was that you know, you add hints of detail, blend it out, lose the detail, put the detail back in, blend it out, always adding and subtracting as you go along. Eventually you get to the point where you're like happy with it and you just stop because you don't want to overwork it. Different people have different drawing styles. I like to leave a little bit of a sketchiness to it. I want it to look drawn. I don't want it to look like a photo, or I don't want it to be mistaken for a photo. And like honestly, the quality that I come up with, I'm never going to have to worry about that. But I still say that I don't want it to be mistaken for a photo, as if that was even a possibility. But no, it's true. I want it to look like it was drawn. So this kind of curves out through here, so I need to make sure that I keep that curve because this kind of goes up into the edge of his mouth. So I don't know what this would be considered, but he's kind of got a gullet, maybe, through here. Hey Q, how's it going? I think it's funny that somebody didn't realize that was Photoshop. I'm not going to name her by name, but she thought it was real. I thought that was funny. Unless you know you're good at it. Good job, Bavetta. How's your week going, Q? Hopefully less busy as mine. I've been super busy this week. So now that I kind of know that this is all going to be dark through here, I'll get a little bit looser with my marks. I call them marks instead of lines because sometimes they're lines, sometimes they're not. A Rickroll flashback. What? You got Rickrolled. That's what I should do. I should start drawing a dog, and then at the end, because like oftentimes I like show the process and then I show the finished work. At the end, just show a picture of Rick Astley. Astley, whatever his name is. You guys know how Rick rolling works. Rick Astley. I have to work on that. Yeah, I kind of like this already. So I'm definitely going to have to come back with the softer charcoal here in these dark areas just because, you know, between the blending and so on, it's not really getting it as dark as I want it to be, as dark as I see it in the picture. So that's where you'd switch pencils. Like I could do an entire picture with one pencil if I wanted to, you know, like every high schooler does, is you know, you got that number two pencil yeah, you can create an entire picture with one pencil, but it really does help to have like softer tones or softer well, it's literally softer lead, but I don't even know if it's called lead when it's charcoal. But it helps to have that softer pencil because you really don't have to press this hard. But I could create pretty dark value with just the medium um, hardness that I have here. Gotta remember that I put in this little, no, that's up here. Oops. This still does kind of curl around. All right, so I'll come back to that because I don't want to. So this is kind of a mid-tone as well, but this area is lighter than this area, and then it's darker through here. So let me put that in. But you also have to have a little bit of patience for this because a lot of it is just kind of filling in these lines. Like the fun part is creating the lines, right? So like the initial sketch of the dog, that's the fun part because you see the dog coming out of the page. Um, I wouldn't say that this part is tedious, but to me at least, it's less interesting. I don't know. Maybe I'm more cut out to be like a cartoonist where you're just kind of drawing outlines. There's still like a lot of room to play here where you're like, oh, I can put in these like little details and stuff like that. But I don't know. I don't think it's as interesting. Just basically filling in fur. But that's just me. Maybe to others it's super interesting. And I'm not going to fault them for that. So here it is a highlighted area, so I don't really want to go too dark through there. Um, Instead, I'm just kind of creating these lines that more represent how the fur is going. And I see that there's almost like this arrow shaped spot through here that's a little bit darker than the other areas, and then that comes all the way over, and then it kind of disappears into this heavily dark area here. This area will probably be filled in more when I get to the face. It's kind of strange that I'm starting with the neck. I don't know why that's weirding me out, but that is not what I would expect me to do, but I'm doing it. It's pretty neck though, as far as necks go. That's a nice neck. That's a beautiful neck on this dog. I do like these dogs. They're a little intimidating in appearance. They're not like your more cuddly dogs. Like there's a reason people choose them for like I don't know, military and police dogs. They do kind of command a presence, you know? Like I don't know, like in movies, like cartoons or whatever, like I'm trying to think the movie Up, these are the soldiers. That's kind of how I think of them, but I mean honestly, they're probably super sweet too. All dogs have different temperaments, but I would imagine in a nice home, these guys are probably super sweet, protective maybe. I don't really know. I've never owned one. I knew somebody who had one, I think. So because it is the middle of the day, I'm gonna have coffee instead of bourbon. Gotta stay awake. Rickroll Rickrolled her last year with the treasure auction link. That's great. I love a good prank. Um, I work from home now, but I miss working with coworkers in a team where like you're actually in an office environment and you can do things like that. I always love that. I'm sure we did major pranks at my old job. Uh, Certainly, we never did anything that was mean spirited or anything like that. They were all like light pranks. Can't think of any really good ones. German bred specifically as attack protection dogs. Okay. But they could be sweet though, right? Because like this dog looks super sweet. And I know you're not supposed to judge a dog just by its appearance, but this dog looks so warm and inviting. But that's how they get you, right? Come play with me. Oh, I'm gonna bite your head off. Nah, this dog wouldn't do that. This dog's too sweet. Maybe another Doberman would, but not this one. This one's super sweet. He's a good boy. Check to make sure I didn't irritate my dogs. Such a good boy. Right, so this is a little darker here, so let me go ahead and blend that in. Very trainable. Yeah, so my understanding is that they're super smart. The smartest dogs that I've had the experience of playing with, and I've had like two of them. Guinness is actually a border collie mix, but I also had another border collie-ish, probably stronger border collie when I was younger. Those dogs are super smart. Border collies. I need to draw one of them at some point. My like I don't have a book or anything that tells me all the different dog breeds, but I think mentally that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make it through like all the different dog breeds at some point. It'll probably take me a long time to get through them all, but one of my little small goals is to eventually draw every single dog breed, but also I want to get through the horse breeds. There are like, for example, 96 different horse breeds in North America. Um, I want to draw all of them because there's like some small changes between like some of them are like physically different. Like there's a big difference between like I don't know like the Budweiser horses and a thoroughbred, for example. So at some point I would like to get through them all, but those are more like long-term goals. But yeah, border collies are super smart dogs. I saw a documentary once where a guy had a border collie. He taught the dog 1,000 distinct individual words that the dog knew and understood and responded to. Like he didn't even start out to do that. He just noticed that the dog was paying attention and learning as he would, you know, mention these different things. And eventually, he just started working with the dog, and come to find that the dog understood 1,000 different things that he was talking about. Of course, my dog only understands 1,000 different types of food. Don't say the F word. It's so close to dinner time here, the dog's gonna go nuts. I mean, I believe it. If they're not the smartest dogs, you could fool me. This one is only part border collie, so he's smart and dumb. All right, so I'm gonna move to the upper face because I feel like down here is good enough to where if I run out of time or something, I can just add like small details or something like that to increase the believability of it. So I'm gonna kind of work across the picture here because I kind of screwed myself. Um, and put in some of these darker areas. Maybe I can do it like this. I have been trying to get in the habit of using my pencil kind of as a paintbrush. So through here, this is all light, but a bit of value. And then through here, all right, I'm gonna have to, you know what? Do it this way. I don't like to do this because I feel like it's cheating, but I don't want to smear things, and I kind of screwed up by starting on the right hand side. I do that a lot. It's so weird. I know better each time, and I don't pay attention, and I do it anyway. I start coloring in either from the bottom or from the right side, which is a right-handed person, just kind of presents problems. All right, so I'm going to start shading in some of this nose here. There's kind of this ridge that comes up and around. Through here, yeah. Oh crap, it's Wednesday. I just realized there's a new episode of Mandalorian out. I think there's only like 2, 3 episodes of that left. You know what I'm doing this evening? Such a good show. I don't know too about this season though. This season they're kind of focusing a little bit on world building, I guess, and they run the risk of like confusing people, people who aren't diehard Star Wars fans who understand even what a Mandalorian is. Like, there's a portion of the population out there who just tune in to watch little baby Grogu. They don't need all that lore. So I do like drawing the end stump of a face. I don't know, snout, whatever this is called. I'm just making up words. Um, I like drawing this part because there is like a lot to work with there in terms of putting in details that convince people that it's an actual real dog on a piece of paper. Like this little center line here probably has a term for it. Got these little darker areas through here. And they kind of come out. There's probably a name for these rows of dark through here as well. I'm gonna have to look those up if I'm gonna continue doing dog portraits and talking about them on the internet, because probably calling it, multiple mustaches isn't gonna cut it. It looks like multiple mustaches. This part kind of curls around, which I didn't notice before, but now that I'm getting into the details. So it comes down, but it also curls around. And then this part comes actually out and then up. And there's not a lot of detail here. There's this darker area, and then there's a slightly lighter area up here. But not a lot going on in there. So I can just kind of use my smaller blending tool just so that I can stay in the lines. Shouldn't have drawn that neck. So for those who actually do want to learn, you put down your charcoal, make sure that you have enough there to work with. But then a lot of it is, unless you're drawing a hard line, the rest of it's all in this blending stump. And then the blending stump, there's different sizes. You use the big one just to kind of do like large swaths of area that you're not really concerned about detail on. But then you get one of these smaller ones for actually doing detail. And then even that, it might as well be a pencil. There's so many different ways to use it. So here I'm kind of lightly blending, but then if I want something to be dark, I'll press down and like really bite into the paper. Then there's some errant lines here that I don't really need, so I'm going to erase those just to kind of clean up my picture a little bit. I don't know why I blew these. Kneadable erasers don't really leave much. And then while there's like still some charcoal on this blending stump, I can kind of come in and do some of these areas that I haven't really put a lot of tone down for. And through here, I kind of want it all to be gray because it is kind of dark. But then I'll come back and I'll add some details over this gray base that I'm kind of forming here. So I know the one person who was in here earlier was asking about blending. That's kind of how I do it. I'll use the blending tool to create a little more defined shape than what I would have as a sketch. And then that's obviously not where I want to leave it. Instead, I want to, there's like some features in here. A lot of people refer to it just generically as information. So I'm going to try to get in the habit of doing that. There's some information in here underneath Doggo's lips. And I want to get some of that information in there. I'm not striving for perfection or anything like that. Like, I could spend more time on it maybe than what I do when I just kind of sketch around and stuff like that. But I do want to make sure that I at least have some information in there. Some people call it detail for the viewer's eyes to kind of focus on and enjoy, like part of the whole reason you draw pictures is for people to enjoy it. And this gives them, something to look at. So it starts with blending out a like a base tone and then adding layers above it. And then one of the challenges is that there are no real hard lines in most of this stuff, so you kind of have to blend those into each other or just kind of like blend it with pencil or with the blending tool, whichever way you do it. But you kind of like, even though this is kind of a hard line on his lip, I kind of want to soften it up by putting shadow underneath it. And that helps with the realism as well. So there's a little bit more here than what I put in originally. I want to move that up a little bit. And the cool thing about putting in these shadows is you do end up with this soft line, which means you can move lines a little bit if you feel like you made a mistake. Like I just kind of moved this lip up just a hair because there wasn't enough space here. So basically doing reconstructive surgery on his mouth in real time. And then this kind of comes down. And this is all dark through here. And like I said, you can get kind of some pretty dark areas with even a medium pencil. I usually save my soft charcoal pencil for the end when I'm kind of evaluating the picture, seeing if there's any details that I left off. Um, so I'll come back with my soft charcoal pencil kind of towards the end and create more contrast, I guess, than what you would get just by blending out the medium. Get the lazy dogs over here just snoring. Of course, they've been sleeping most of the day, so they're going to be up all night torturing me. Yeah, this dog's got a real beautiful face. I'm happy to be drawing him. So I think I think that's a good base gray there. And actually, this is one of those spots where I feel comfortable enough where everything is. I don't feel like it's going to change much. That so this is a softer pencil. I've got other softer pencils that are longer. It's just this is the first one to grab. So this is going to be a dark area through here, representing a little line in his nose. There's like a little crease that comes off here. Kind of want to define the nostrils a little bit better. A lot of people spend a lot of time focusing on details of the eyes with dogs. There's a lot of like little fine lines that you can put in the nose if you're really shooting for detail. So for human beings, I guess maybe like the eyes are definitely something that people look at. Um, they look at the lips. They look at these various different pieces for detail. With dogs, probably less so with cats because cats have smaller noses. Um, they really spend a lot of time looking at the details in the nose. So if you're looking for to do a realistic dog picture, take time, learn, or just spend more time on the details of the nose, and like you've already completed half of your mission, which is to convince somebody that this is a proximity of a real dog. These are things I tell myself, by the way. I'm not perfect at it. Like I can draw a decent nose, but I'm not perfect at drawing noses. But these are things that I'm telling you to remind myself what I'm trying to do is create a lot of detail in the nose because the nose matters. So I'm only half telling you, I'm trying to remind myself at the same time. So like down here, there's this little feature where it kind of curls in and then comes back up and around. So yeah, kind of that little bit lip there. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time blending this out because I want to leave some of this texture in here. So you can accomplish a proximity of fur, one by making marks, like you can draw each individual fur piece of fur if you want. Two, by creating large swaths of fur, like down here, where you don't see any individual hair at all. You're just seeing like big blankets of color. And then the third way um, is kind of just leave some texture in there, right? So like there's already some tooth to the paper. If you don't blend it out too much, like you run the risk of over blending it if you go too crazy with it. Um, by not over blending it, you leave some of that texture in there, which also helps convince that there's fur there. So there's like some dots up in here and stuff like that. So I'm just kind of throwing some random marks. Dogs have these almost look like sponges. That's not right. Doesn't look like sponges. It looks like scales almost in their nose. There's definitely some texture there. These like little rounded marks. I don't spend a lot of time on them, but if you can get on a dog face this large, you can kind of get a little creative in there, trying to get those little circles in there. But usually, I don't even worry about it too much. I'm just kind of creating some more contrast in here to let you know that there's a nose here, and then there's whatever this part is on the dog. Kind of create that separation. Hey kid, how's it going? Yeah, this one's a Doberman, or that's what I'm shooting for at least. All right, so this is all dark up through here. I'm going to switch back to my medium. Notice I never put any of these down. I always have these three tools in my hand. One, the blending stump, two, the medium for like lighter areas, and then three, the more so towards the end of the picture, but right now it's already in my hand, so I'm just going to keep it there. I don't put these back in a box or anything like that because I'm switching back and forth throughout. At this point, I'm just putting in some like medium tone, but here in a minute, I might switch to the darker to create more contrast in it. And the difference between dogs and human faces is, like most of the human face is just like one big flesh tone area. Like there's like different, I don't know, like areas of the face and stuff that causes like ridges and 3D features, but not as much as what you see going in a dog because the dog actually has literally splotches of fur. Same with a cat. Cats are terrible because like if you got a striped cat that you're drawing, that's a lot of detail that you're putting in. But yeah, they're a little bit different than human beings because you've got all these little patches of fur that you have to account for. Yeah, I'm on early today, just because like kind of early for a live stream. So usually I like to draw my pictures in the morning just to start my day, but I was busy this morning, so I didn't get that done. So in the afternoon, I'm like, well, I still got to draw my picture, and then I'm like, oh, I'm not doing anything else. Why not do it as a live stream? Usually, whenever I do a live stream on Wednesday, it's usually earlier during the day. The late night ones are typically on Fridays. I think I might actually make my Monday ones earlier too if I start doing those, just because like I don't know if it goes over, I feel terrible keeping people up late, especially if they have to go to work or something like that. Like I feel like it's early enough during the day that if this runs late or whatever, I'll just have a late supper. But I don't think this is going to run that late. It's just a bunch of areas that need to be filled in, but the details are mostly. I always like to go for detail areas, so the details are in the eyes and in the nose, to a lesser degree the ears. This splotch of area, nobody's looking for details, and same with other areas of his face. So I am going to move to the eyes a little bit, I think, just to kind of remind myself where everything is. So on this side, it's just this round ball. Yeah, well, some human faces, especially people seem to like babies. You just gotta be cute is all. Most people aren't cute. We get ugly as we get older. So I gotta remind myself that this is a short-haired dog, so don't get crazy with having fur come out on the edge over here. But there's a little bit in some areas of like little tufts of fur. So I feel like it's fine to put those in. I do like drawing dogs. It's does bring me a lot of joy. Just pets in general. I like drawing humans too. Um, but when I'm drawing humans, it's more like I want to be better at drawing humans. It's almost like it's not as much fun as drawing dogs. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's always fun to draw, but dogs, it's just a lot more relaxing to draw a dog. It's almost like the dog is sitting here in front of you. With human beings, Maybe not so much. I feel like this actually comes out a little bit further over here. So that's how I'm moving lines as I go along. I actually think that this ear is supposed to be wider. Just I just love that. I should just leave it like this, where like this like shadowed eye, but not even filled in. It's like glowing, like there's fire in his eyes. I should do the other eye like that and just leave it. But I'm not going to because it's not realistic. But that is kind of cool. I like that effect. But I've been promising to try to do more live streams and not just do the videos and putting them up. Because I do actually enjoy engaging with people, and I like describing what I'm working on. And when I do like a standalone video or one of the time lapses or something like that, I mean maybe I could just do that as well, like actually describe more in those. But I'm not in the habit of actually spending a lot of time describing what I'm doing, and mostly that's because I'm not that comfortable with it. It's not that I'm like I don't know. I just don't feel like I know the terms. Like I don't know what this body part. Well, this one's an eye. I kind of can guess that one, but when I'm dealing with these lines here, right? I don't know what that's called. I don't feel like I have to. You guys don't care, but I still feel like I should if I'm going to be talking about it. Anyway, feel like I could be more educated on like dog anatomy if I'm going to be talking about it. And the dog just woke himself up. So unfortunately, when dealing with like fur of any type, it really is just taking your time and just making shorter marks than maybe what you would normally do. You know, you're just making little tiny marks instead of like big swatches of fur. I like to use my blending stump as well to kind of carve in areas just so that I remember where they're at, right? So like I'll fill in this area here, one because it is a midtone in the actual picture, but also by doing this, I'm like, oh, okay, this is where the midtone starts and ends, and this is like a little block of shape that I have to deal with. This becomes kind of important to me as I start losing my guidelines that I put in the initial sketch. You know, I think the lines are just whisker follicles. Is that what these are? Whisker follicles? Follicles? I can't even say whisker follicles. Oh shit, I just did. Um, okay, whisker follic. Ah, I had it just a moment ago. Whisker, whisker follicles. Fortunately, I don't care if I sound like a moron. Whisker follicles. Oh, there you go. Well, I learned something new today. Whisker follicles. If I say it enough times, I'll remember. I drew whisker follicles today. So you can see that sometimes they get a little bit looser. Um, Part of that is just to vary it up, and part of it is just like to move it along. I feel like it's okay. Like you can vary how you make your marks throughout the picture, give it a little bit of variety. So these are much darker areas. That's why I don't mind actually using this darker pencil. Actually, come back in here. So when I do get to some areas, I want to like a finer point, and there's two ways to do that. I can reach over here and sharpen it, or I can come to like one of these darker areas and just kind of like fill that in a little bit, and then guess what? Now my pencil's sharper. So anyway, we'll save yourself some trouble tip. Why sharpen your pencil when you can just like dump a lot of charcoal down into the part that you need to dump charcoal into anyway? Then you kind of get this like finer line so that you can add details. I usually come back at the end and add like little white marks, but because this is so big, I don't mind penciling them in. Like you guys have seen where I usually save the reflection on the eyes until like later. But because I have such because I drew this head so big, I feel like I can just kind of pencil that right in. And if I want to mess with it later, I kind of can, but so I do think that I wanted to leave a little bit underneath. It's a little bit lighter, so I'm going to come back in and kind of remove some of that charcoal just because I shouldn't have. Yeah, see? Yeah, that's awesome. But if you get the eyes right, half your battle. Like I can screw up the ear and no one will care. If I screw up the eyes, somebody's going to notice. Or if I screw up the overall proportions, that's actually important too. So the proportions, get the eye as good as you can. And this applies to like any kind of portrait, whether you're doing a human, cat, dog, fish. Fish have eyes? Yeah, fish have eyes. Get the eyes right. That's half your battle. Honestly, you could just do the eyes and just kind of like hint at some of these other features, and people would be like, yep, you did a study of a dog. Yeah, I wasn't even planning on doing this live stream. I didn't schedule it. I didn't warn anybody. Just kind of decided to do it today. I'm gonna try to do more of those. Just kind of spring it on you guys. Scare you. So through here, it's kind of light, but you get these little individual, not individual first, but like just it's almost like drawing a tree where you don't draw every single branch. You just kind of put in some marks to give people the idea that there are branches there. That's probably a good way to describe what you're doing when you're working on a dog face. A dog face. Why is that so funny to me? So you draw these individual pieces of the fur by kind of just popping around and just putting in marks. You don't have to draw every single one of them. You're just giving an idea that they're there. And then what I like to do to kind of reinforce that is I don't just leave these fields of fur just like laying around. I come back and I kind of blend out little parts of that to kind of fill in some of the gaps there, just so that it kind of more resembles that, yeah, there's a lot of fur in here, but you can't see all of them because some of them are blurred, if that makes sense. So even though I want that finer detail in there, I do want parts of it to kind of be blended out just to kind of really hammer the parts that aren't. So Again, I've talked about this before. Whenever dealing with like shadow and light areas, I kind of like to squint so that I get the idea of where everything is. So squinting, I notice that this actually comes through here. A little bit of darkness there. Honestly, if you guys want one takeaway from today, like if you are a new artist and you're just trying to get your feet wet, this is the best thing I ever learned. Is like when you're dealing with like just kind of squint at the reference picture, and it kind of tells you where the major shapes are. Especially like when dealing with high contrast areas, so like black and white or like light and shadows and stuff. Like you don't have to be perfect, but doing that little squinting technique lets you know what areas should be colored in and what are less important, if that makes sense. Or less critical. Yeah. All right, so there's a tuft of rust up here, but then the dark areas kind of envelop that or containerize it. And then this part goes all the way around, almost like an eyebrow. And if I squint, look at the two, I notice that there's a little bit more darkness that comes through here, a little bit around here. And then all of this through here is going to be kind of like here where it's just basically light area with some detail in it. But, you know, not a lot of detail. And that's how we do it. So I know that, let's say right here, it's basically a thick line that comes around, goes into this bit, here, here. This kind of comes down. It's almost like drawing the shadow areas of a human face because the hair is so short, you know. I mean, it's looking like a freaking Doberman to me. Not to brag or anything, but I think I drew a Doberman. I'm just kidding. Don't get too excited, dog. I think it looks more like a Doberman than some of my other pictures look like. Who was the dude I drew the other day? John Locke from Lost, even though I didn't finish it. This looks more like a Doberman than that looks like John Locke. Um, thank you, Q. I appreciate that. I mean, I can't even take credit for it. It's a beautiful dog. Like, I could put the photo up and you guys would say the exact same thing about it. You would be like, oh, it's beautiful. I just don't have the photo on this computer. Hopefully, you guys will judge it by just any random Doberman. But I'm kind of varying a little bit from the reference photo anyway. And I feel like that's fine. I feel like people should do that. You shouldn't do that so much if you're doing like a commission for somebody. Like you have to get the major features in there. It's what people consider like the likeness of it. And that applies to human beings, dogs, cats, whatever you're drawing. You have to get the likeness in there. So there's tips to that. Like I'm not perfect at it or whatever, but one is the proportions. You got to get all the proportions right. But when you're doing fur, right, you're kind of going for the hint of detail. You're not putting in each individual hair. So when doing a pet portrait, I like to look at the pet and be like, well, what are the key features that I have to get in there? Like, what makes this dog unique from other dogs? And spoiler alert, most dogs actually look alike. So there's not a ton of uniqueness, but there is some that aren't necessarily in every Doberman. Like, for example, it is actually a common feature, so I don't really like want to focus too much on it. But in this dog, it's got, even though it's black and white, it's got these lighter rust color areas right above these like little brows, right? And that's actually kind of common in these type of dogs. So I wouldn't call it very unique. But if those weren't there, like say, like I don't think all Dobermans have to have them. Maybe they do. I don't know. But I do know that if I left them off, it wouldn't look like this particular Doberman. So if I was doing somebody's pet and they look at their pet all the time and they see these little marks and like, oh, those are cute. Look at it, it's got eyebrows and stuff. Well, guess what? If I fail to put those in there, they'll notice. So I think that that's important. So it's not just does it look like a Doberman, does it look like their Doberman? And the way it looks like their Doberman, I'm not even pronouncing this right. I'm sure I'm not. But the way it looks like their dog is got to have those eyebrows in there because that's probably what they look at all the time, recognize their dog by. So there's this ridge of dark area down here underneath the eye. It kind of comes all the way across, but I don't want to get too carried away because there are other features that I need to make sure to go in there as well. So there's this ridge of dark area that comes down through here. And then parts of this ridge are darker than others. So like it starts off dark. Like there's this pretty clearly defined line here underneath the eye. And it kind of comes down. And then it kind of lightens up because the sun catches it or whatever light is lighting this up. It might be in a studio. I don't know. But anyway, whatever light is catching it kind of catches it and then it becomes lighter. That comes down to, I want to say around here. So through here, there's a ridge. It gets a little bit lighter. And really, this is the secret to drawing any kind of hair. So you just draw these lines as if you're doing like a crosshatch, right? And then the outside edges, depending on what you're looking at, are going to be darker because it kind of has a little bit of a curve to it and it kind of comes in. And then this area is going to be light, and then you continue down here, and guess what? This area becomes darker. And guess what? Now we have this ridge across this dog's face. That's all there is to it, guys. I know that you guys are expecting some like secret recipe or something like that, but that's really all there is to this. That's all there is to drawing fur or hair or whatever, you know. Um, Beyond that, it's just a matter of patience, you know. Do you have the patience to finish it? Uh, all right, we've been drawing this for an hour and a half. I bet you I'm done with this within 2 hours. Now, a lot of that hour and a half is just me explaining things, taking my time so that I don't screw it up. And then you just kind of come back over it until it's the right darkness that you want it, and so on. So I also know that this ridge kind of comes down. Yeah, it is pretty common. I've seen it a lot. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's part of that whole intimidation thing. So like, you know, you see those eyebrows and you like, you know, this dog means business. I don't know. I don't know what the actual evolutionary reason is, but it definitely gives them this intimidating expression. The only problem is with some dogs, you got all this fur to cover, you know. Let's see, this comes down further here. I'll come back to some of the other markings of snout. This is definitely darker through here. This actually comes around. See, there's this tuft here. And this bit kind of comes around like that. I had penciled it in earlier. Nice to see that my marks are still there. This is really short hair through here, so if I want to, I can come in and blend it in and not lose too much detail, because the detail wasn't really there to begin with. I think I'm going to do that. So I don't really want to make it ultra smooth. I just kind of want to blend in a few areas here, a few areas there to kind of give this effect of some shadows in it. Let's see, and then this comes down. There's another little patch through here that's got some shadow to it. So the main areas are this little ridge here with shadows. Let's reinforce that with a little bit darker value. This ridge here with some shadows. All the fur is mostly going in the same direction. And then this little ridge here with less shadow, kind of spread out. It was smaller. And then it kind of goes into this area here. And that's extended down through here, but also across here. I think you got the gist of it through here. So this part definitely comes into this. Bring this up a little bit. So then let me fill in this area here because it's kind of a little bit naked. Don't want a naked doggy. Like freeze. Kind of comes across here. Yeah. Smaller tufts through here. Bring this down. Some others would probably come in and crosshatch through here, but I just like to scribble. I'm not a very precise artist. I don't think nature is very precise. I say that as if I'm making a conscious decision. I'm just saying that, like, I'm not in the habit of doing precise lines. It's not really that I'm thinking about it at all. Oh, cool. Thanks, Troy. I appreciate that. I caught part of your stream earlier. Are you guys still going? I know sometimes you guys have these marathon sessions. All right. I'm gonna come back to this area here because there is like a lot of details there. Bear with me, dog. Bear with me, bear. You guys know the drill. Sometimes these things take 2 hours. But it's so worth it because I get these pretty dog pictures out of it. 2 hours is kind of like on the longer side for a charcoal picture. Usually they take about, I don't know, maybe an hour and a half or so. I think the reason why this one is taking longer is because one, I'm explaining the process. Two, I'm trying to get it good, like actually put in a lot of detail where, I don't know, like oftentimes I just kind of skip over things. But I like how this one's turning out, so I kind of want this to be like maybe a showpiece or something like that. Be like, hey, Look at this beautiful picture I drew. I don't know, maybe it's wishful thinking. But I do like the markings on this dog. I like how it's turning out. So don't let me forget to do this mouth here because that's not actually how it looks. There's some lips there. I rely on you guys to remind me of things, so don't let me down. I'm just kidding. There's always a point at the end where I do kind of like a mental evaluation of it, like, did I get everything? You know, kind of like proofreading if you were like writing something. Unfortunately, a lot of that is something that I'm left to do myself, and I do forget. Like, even though I just told myself, don't forget to do that part, I will probably forget. I hope not. It's the whole forest for the trees things. You spend all this time drawing these like little trees here, you forget about the overall forest. So there is definitely here. So as I move away from the eyes and away from the nose, I feel comfortable getting a little bit looser with my pencil marks because your eyes are not going to be as focused on that. So if I'm just putting in, you know, larger swaths of fur, you're not going to be as focused on that anyway. So if I blend this in, that just means that there's some smoother fur here. You guys don't know, you don't care. Actually, this is what the reference photo looks like anyway. The reference photo actually blurs out around this area. So that's one of the cool things about working off of reference photos. You know, you get that natural aperture focus um, for free, just how cameras work, right? Unfortunately, in real life, if you're drawing like a live subject, you kind of have to uh, decide all that yourself. Like, where is my focal point going to be? What am I going to do to draw people's eyes to a particular spot? You know, you're left to your own devices. That's why you're an artist. That's why people think it's cool what you do, you know? You get to be creative like that. That's the dream, guys. What we're all working on. So there's this rust area through here. Just gonna kind of sketch that in so I don't forget where it is. I previously had it over here, but I moved it because I realized I put it in the wrong spot. And you can do that. And if you do it fast enough, no one notices until you tell them. Like if this was you know, one of my shorts or TikToks or something, you're not going to notice that I moved that line there unless you're paying really close attention because it goes by so fast. You probably wouldn't have noticed it just now as I did it. It's sort of like a little magic trick. Um, but I'm going to call your attention to it because I think it's kind of cool, and I want to remind people who are just getting started drawing and stuff. You can do things like that. You know, you can do repairs as you go along, unless you're doing it in ink, and then you have to like really get like maybe cover it up or something to that effect because ink gets permanent. It's a little more challenging if you're working in ink. That's why people who do work with ink get so much respect. Um, I'm not that concerned about things like that because, like, you know, I don't really pull out the eraser all that often anyway. And if I do, it's just to add some detail by erasing something that could have some more lines in it or something like that. I'm not in the habit of fixing mistakes with erasers. more so, I'm in the habit of treating it like a painting where, or, like ink or something like that, where I'm fixing mistakes by covering them up with new layers. Um, or, moving lines as I'm going along or something like that. But I very rarely use erasers. I have done it. You guys have seen me do it, but I very rarely ever use erasers just to fix a mistake. And there's a practical reason for that. Like, I'm throwing down a lot of charcoal. If I wanted to erase these lines, they're so dark. That's why you start with the lighter charcoal. But if I wanted to erase these lines, I would have a lot of trouble doing that just because they are so dark at this point. Earlier in the thing, it's a lot easier, and that's why you kind of do it before you commit to it. But I'm committed to these lines now. There's nothing I can do about it except cover them up like a painting. And if you think masters don't make mistakes, yeah, go and look up how many times they discover a second painting underneath some master work. It's because somebody started a painting, a master, Leonardo da Vinci, Raphael, Michelangelo, whoever, Rembrandt, started a painting, realized they made a mistake, or just otherwise became disinterested in it, or gave up on it because it was a failure, and they just painted over it. They just started over. Now, maybe some of that was just to save on art supplies. Like, I can imagine it was a little bit difficult back in the day to get these canvases. So they probably tried to, conserve them or something. But anyway, point is, masters make mistakes too. So don't beat yourself up. I am certainly no master, but it's comforting to know that the experts screw up too. Kind of gives you a little bit of freedom to make mistakes. You don't feel so bad doing it. All right, so this is mostly the light up here, so I just kind of want to do like I usually do, is just put in a few lines. Right through here is a feature where this line here kind of comes across and it kind of forms this other little ridge. Don't want to get carried away with it, it's not that big. And most of this through here is just these little scrub brushes, I'm going to call them. Little scrub brushes of hair. And then up here. All right, so now this is done except for this part and this part. So don't let me forget those parts. How are we doing on time? Jeez, that's taking a lot longer than I thought. So because it's not a focal point and because I'm running out of time, I'm going to kind of do a quick bit through here. I don't think anybody's going to really notice the lack of detail through these parts. I'm going to extend this part up because I feel like the ear should have started through here. Bring this part up because I'm not happy with the bat ears going on here. Yeah. See, I just moved a line and you guys didn't even notice. Oh, cool. All right. Well, go forth and draw, my man. Anyway, I just reshaped his ear. You guys didn't even notice. Aha. Magic. So this is all pretty light through here. Now, again, if I was doing this for a commission or something like that, I would take greater care, but you guys don't care. So I'm just going to kind of rush through this ear. The lack of detail probably doesn't translate to camera anyway. Hey, thanks, Angela. I appreciate that. You guys are so nice. Okay, so this is going to be a little bit of fur here. This area here is going to be a darker bit. It comes down, comes up like that. So this is the other way to draw fur, by the way. Just sketch it super fast. I feel like this is going to be more problematic in some of the detailed areas that people pay attention to. But for ears, neck, so on, like, add a little bit of shadow down here. Add some contrast. Ears, neck, and so on, not heavy focal points. Nobody really cares. If you have a big fat line just kind of running out in the middle of nowhere. I say nobody cares. Somebody out there cares. Somebody out there is gonna downvote you because you got in a hurry. We're a little bit careless. But actually, I'm happy with this. I think this looks cool. So what if it goes a little bit faster because I'm just kind of loosely doing it? All right, so there's this ridge here that comes up and around. I need to extend this. I'm going to put in this darker line just to remind me. This is all furry, furry, furry. Got this dark area here. Throw down some charcoal to blend. There's this soft curvature through here and extends all the way up. Man, there's actually a lot of detail on this thing. You got longer fur coming off the side here that I didn't notice before. Just kind of rapid fire putting these things in. Yeah, that's cool. And then this is blended out because it's kind of like the soft curvature on the inside of his ear. It kind of comes in. And that extends mostly up. And then I guess I don't I don't know this architecture here of this ear. Yeah, again, you guys are really talented. It's kind to call me talented. I appreciate that. Anyway, there's some weird architecture down through here. Some fur that kind of comes across there. This all gets blended in because it's just one big patch. All right, so now we get into some more detailed areas where I have to be more careful. This is where we have some fur that a little bit lighter than over there, but it kind of comes across like this. It's basically this long furred area. But again, I'm not too stressed about being careful. I can be loose with my marks because the ear, no one's really paying attention up here. And also, that's kind of how the ear actually looks, you know? Blend some of this out. I want to create a little bit darker tone through here. Grab some of that lead that's on my thing here. Put that in. Getting there, guys. We only got one more ear left to go after this, and then finish up the face, and we can call this done. You guys have been super patient. Appreciate it. All right, so all this is just dark up here. And then this is mostly dark through here. Like individual lines that are kind of more hairline. I mean, that kind of looks right. All right, so I'm happy with that. Now I got to get this ear done, finish up his mouth, and call it a day. All right, so this is mostly dark up through here, so let me throw down some charcoal that I can kind of blend. I mean, it's kind of the same way in painting, I would imagine. I don't do a lot of painting or any, um, but it's certainly the case in pastel that you just have to throw down some pigment and then you can start defining it from there. So I know that there's this like little tiny ridge here. This kind of comes up and around. There's no hard line here, so I can just kind of blend that out, make that soft. There was kind of, just want to do something real quick over here. There was some fur coming out, but there's also this hard edge here. Anyway, back to this. Um, so this is kind of soft through here. Soft. Definitely hard edge there. Or dark hard edge. And then it does get kind of dark up through here. There's some individual like fur coming off. But this side's smooth. I'm narrating, but I'm kind of talking to myself at the same time, describing to myself what I see in the picture. This is softer here. It's all dark. It's kind of darker here. Anyway, you can see very quickly you can throw in a pretty realistic ear. It may not win any awards or anything, but it looks like an ear to me. Looks like it looks a lot better than some of the human ears that I've drawn. Um, those are tough. Human ears and human hands. Dog paws and dog ears are a lot easier by comparison. Anyway, this is all blurred up here anyway in the reference photo, so why shouldn't it be in our drawing? Your eye's not focused on it. It's just a massive, um, not massive. Why did I say massive? It's just a shape with very little information in it that you have to relay. People know that it's an ear. You don't have to really sell it. Looks like an ear to me. A little bit more darkness through there. Anyway, that took what, like 2 minutes maybe? I don't know, maybe it was longer, but I wasn't really paying attention. But that's an error, right? All right, so let's move into here. So I did want to kind of finish this mouth. I have to be careful with this, so because this is in the focal area, like this is where people are drawn to. So I have to slow it down and be a little more careful. Extending that ridge out. Right here, it's going to be blended in. There's kind of this upper lip that comes around. Up here, it's kind of shadowed, and then it kind of comes into, I guess, gums through here. And some of this I can kind of blur. Thank you. He really does. He has this it's hard to convey in a drawing. It's not perfect here, but yeah, it is very reflective. It catches the light really well. I would love to do this guy in color. Maybe I'll save this picture and come back to him at some point because he would look cool in color as well. dark area up here. It comes around. Yeah, I don't think I'm done with this guy. I'm going to come back to him at some point and redraw him in color just because he is very beautiful. It's like a little ridge of darkness here. I'm going to go ahead and extend this out. And then there are some, so you have to be careful when you have this neck here. I like, I'm worried about getting some smudges in here. You saw earlier where I had the piece of paper over it. That's probably what I should be doing, but I'm not too stressed about it. All right, so I think I know where everything's going to be. Now we can kind of detail it in. So you saw that I put this line here. That's because there is actually like a little tuft fur detail here. It kind of goes along the edge of the mouth. It disappears into some mid-tone kind of fur through here. All of this mid-tone fur kind of comes up and around through here. And then it kind of matches the curve a little bit of these like little, ah shit, just they told me the term for them and I forgot. The whisker follicles. There you go. All right, whisker follicles through here. All right, so there's mid-range fur through here, basically, and you can kind of see that there. That basically tells you that it's, if you were drawing this in color, it would be yellowish, or definitely orange through here, kind of like this rust color, as they pointed out. This rust color through here, and then it disappears into this highlighted area, which is more yellow through here, and then it goes back into rust. All right, so I'm happy with that. I feel like there's enough information there to sell it. Let me take this little mouth here. I want to extend this line across. I kind of already put that in earlier, but I want to reinforce it now. And then that comes down into some shadow area. And then we'll put in his drill bucket, I'm going to call it. It's just right underneath his mouth. I'm going to blend that out a little bit because this looks a little rougher than what I would want it to. And then bring that back up and around. And just kind of keep going over it until you're happy with it. I think this should come down a little bit there. A little bit more shadow in there at the bottom to kind of make it look a little bit 3D. That looks cool. All right, so I'm going to do some reinforcement of some of these other lines here. So I feel like that should be darker now, but a little bit further along. Starting to shape up to be a nice little doggo. It's just basically drawing a bunch of shapes. All right, there's like a little whisker coming off here. I'm going to put that in. This kind of comes up, it's a little bit closer there. All right, and then down here, it would be much darker because we kind of lost that line, that defined edge. It kind of gets muddled up with the neck if we don't draw this shadow here. So this shadow isn't exactly in the, well, it's a little bit in the reference photo, but I really want to kind of like make it a little bit darker through here just to kind of define that lip a little bit. So that's there. This bit comes up through here. This is all a little bit darker through here. This is a little bit darker through here. Again, I'm trying to be a lot shorter in my marks because I'm also trying, while I'm putting in shadow, I'm also trying to put in hair, right? So like he's got a little tufts of fur through there. All right, so this is going to be a little bit darker. And then you've got these like little, what would you call those? I don't know. I'm just gonna call them like little marks. So they're all mustache marks. These little mustache marks that come off here. They're in every animal like this, whether it's a cat, tiger, lion. I don't know. Maybe not lion. I don't remember. I have never drawn a lion in my life. But you got these little like spots. Freckles. Let's call them freckles. Little mustache freckles. That is totally not the right term. But you draw them a lot like you draw human freckles. You know, you just kind of put a few little circular marks in just to let people know that they're there. Like, hey, I'm here. Don't forget me. I'm on this dog. All right. So I am kind of happy with that. All right, so I'm not going to go crazy with my dark pencil. Got a little whisker off of that. Another one's coming down here. Switch back to my medium pencil real quick and kind of like do a little more just spot shading, I guess. And then I think we're almost done there, guys. I'll let you off the hook, which is cool because my dogs are getting super hungry. They're awake and moving around now, so they're like, dinner time. Why haven't you fed us yet? The cat got fed. You love the cat more than you love us. That's fun. All right, let's see. This is the part where I evaluate it and I look for any kind of quick pick-me-ups in terms of details that I can add really quick before I call it done. I feel like this comes down a little bit further than I drew it. This could maybe be darker through here. This could maybe be darker through here because you got like a lot. None of this translates to camera anyway. I don't know why I'm bothering with it. This I feel like could be a little bit more defined through here. So you do all these shapes and stuff, and then like at the end you kind of come back and you look at it and you see like what can I tie together a little bit better. I mean, at this point you're not even really going off the reference photo. You kind of are, but you're not. You're kind of making your picture just look cohesive on its own. It has nothing to do with the animal in real life or the photo that you're working off of. You're just kind of looking around and being like, okay, what looks weird here? And you're kind of closing up some of those gaps. So like there was this really white edge along here. I didn't like that. This right here could probably be less white. Just little areas you forgot about or missed or whatever. Let's add a little bit of shadow through here. So it comes down. I think there's another little beauty mark. Well, I've called this every single thing, but what they actually are probably. Called mustache marks, freckles, beauty marks. All right. I don't know. Does it look like a freaking Doberman? I think it does. Jowls. Thank you. Jowls through here. Right? Yeah. I knew that. You know what I need to do while I'm drawing animals? I need an animal like anatomy reference next to me so that I can look these things up. And then it can be an educational show. Right now, it's not all that educational. Make that dark. So this part here should be rust color. It sucks that it's in black and white. You're not gonna get that that's supposed to be rust color. But anyway, I think it looks pretty good. I'm comfortable calling it done. Definitely has a lot more detail in it than some of my other dogs, so I'm happy with it. So, hey, thanks, Devil Bud. So if you guys are happy with it, I'm happy with it. I'm going to go ahead and call this live stream done. I'm going to make a time lapse of it, put it up as a short, so be looking for that later. I think most of you guys are subscribed, but if you haven't subscribed already, be sure to like and subscribe, and click that little. There's my dog. All right, the dog's getting antsy. Be sure to click the notification so you know when I'm going to do another one. I've been doing these like most of. All right, give me a second. Anyway, the dogs want to go, so I'm just going to hop off. Anyway, thank you very much for hanging out with me. I'll probably be back Friday evening, do another picture. Till then, have a good one. See you guys. Bye.